Hey, everybody, I'm Ashleigh Banfield, and this is Drop Dead Serious. And I know I sound terrible. I know. I got the crud. Whatever the heck it is that millions of us in America have right now, I got it. Um, Last night I thought it was just a tickle in my throat. And then this morning I woke up with full blown Brenda Vaccaro voice and then some. So I'm just going to muddle through it. I'm going to apologize for sounding icky because I do have a lot that I need to share with you. This story, I can't quit this because I still am not. I have a Koberger feel in that I'm not satisfied. I still don't know why Koberger did it. And even though we're learning a lot in the Spencer and Monique Tepe murders in Columbus, Ohio, I'm still completely flummoxed as to how and why anybody could do this, let alone if it's true, if it is this ex-husband, Dr. Michael McKee, how and why would he do it? It's just so bizarre. There's so much that I have yet, to get answers to. And frankly, I think that's why we're all so obsessed, right? For sure, it was a mystery in the beginning who did this. But then the arrest of Dr. McKee just made it more mysterious. Like, why? How? Same feeling I have with Koberger. Why these people and how? Anyway, we did get a lot of answers today from the Columbus Police Department. They held a news conference, which was like, thank you. That's the kind of thing that we're used to in America. We are part of the process. We're not hidden from it. So I was very happy that they did that. And they answered the question I've been asking, I think, on every one of these episodes, right? Haven't I said, I want to know, is it Michael McKee? Do they believe Michael McKee is the one who's hulking down through the back alley at the time of the murders in the vicinity of the crime scene? This was the guy, a person of interest we were all supposed to somehow look out for and let the police know if we recognized something about this mysterious character who took great pains to keep his face covered. At the end of his walk, you can really see him pull his hood down and hide from whatever cameras might be around. Well, today, Columbus police said, yeah, that was him. So there's one more allegation that they've got him walking in the vicinity, not just driving a vehicle connected to him, right? So the other walloping piece of information the police confirmed today, and this one I did not expect them to tell us. I am like, holy cow. They told us they found weapons in his home. And not just weapons, plural. They found one that was linked to the murders. So I just got to stop there for a second. We're all close, right? We all know this true crime business pretty good now because we're in this community. Who murders someone and keeps the weapon in their house? Like, I'm not indicting this Dr. McKee guy, but if he's the killer, who the F would keep the murder weapon in your apartment? That's nuts. And what that tells me, if he's the killer, he is one dumb ass killer. You might be really smart in the OR. You might be really smart at university in your medical practice, in your medical school. But damn, brother, you don't know about our business. You don't know a thing. You're an X to start with. You would be inside the tightest concentric circles. And you kept the murder weapon in your house? Again, he's innocent until proven guilty, but what? Okay. What it also tells me is that because he's that dumb, if he did this, he probably left all the usual suspect clues behind and dragged all the usual suspect clues from the crime scene. So this is going to make it like way more of a cakewalk than, say, Koberger, whose study was criminology. Like, look, he tripped up, really tripped up in so many ways. But in a lot of ways, he didn't, right? He bought software that wiped out a lot of his profile, wiped out a lot of his communications. Thereby, we can't find the motive. We can't find if he'd been stalking the kids in the 1122 King Road. But that was a criminology PhD. And he knew the business of committing crimes and investigations. This guy, unless he watches forensic files, in CSI, it kind of looks like if he's guilty, he didn't know shite. And it ain't like it is on TV. They do a couple things on TV, but it isn't like TV. So I'm going to get into more of that in a minute with some amazing guests who know way more about it than I do. But also, I was super interested to hear the police chief make a very quick mention to something that stood out like a beacon for me. And almost like she slurred through it. Unless you know the business, you might not have caught it. But she said the NIBIN system was what they used to connect his gun to the murder scene. The NIBIN system, yeah. So again, I know because you and I, simpatico. But the NIBIN system is like a DNA database for guns. It is the baby of the ATF. So just think about like the DNA database that finds bad guys and connects them to crime scenes. NIBIN does that with ballistics and weapons. What is interesting, though, and I'm going to get deep into this in a bit, this guy is squeaky clean, allegedly till now. He didn't have a blemish on a record. He doesn't even have a record. I think he's got a speeding ticket, maybe. Nothing. I mean, listen, the guy's squeaky clean till now. His background is clean. So how would his weapon be a NIBIN, right? Weapons are a NIBIN when they get them from crime scenes and bad stuff happens. So I've got a really good answer to that. We also have some new arrest details. I kept wondering who and how are they going to bring this guy in? Who's going to do it? How are they going to do it? Did they go to his apartment? No, they did not. Or if they did, they didn't do it there. They went to his place of work. And we're learning he was coming off shift. So he's arrested in the morning. So he's doing the overnights, right? He's in there on a Friday night till Saturday morning. And it turns out he's coming out of the hospital and he's headed somewhere. And wait until I tell you what these cops got a beat on as they're tailing him. And it's the ATF. There's another whole story. Why is it the ATF? I got that for you too. But they're tailing him and they go behind him and he stops for lunch. So we know where he stopped for lunch. And we know the people who saw this happen. So we're going to get into all that as well. The people who witnessed the spectacle probably had no effing idea, like that the guy they were collaring was for some murder, 6 hours away. Got another detail, too, that now makes sense. And I think we're going to learn a lot more about it. Apparently, Monique Tepe used to refer to her ex-husband in a very specific way after their divorce. It wasn't Dr. McKee. Let's just say that. And so I'm going to get into that as well in this episode. There's a lot to get to. And again, I'm just going to apologize for sounding this way. But at least I didn't call in sick, right? Okay. One other big thing I'm going to tackle. And I'm super fascinated by this because even after 38 years of doing this work, I still learn things. But your right to remain silent is golden. And everybody should use it. I don't think McKee did. I can tell you he didn't. Not at first. He did when they cuffed him. And that I get. Anybody knows if you got cuffs on you, they're reading you your rights. And you usually, not always, but usually, if you're smart enough, you take them. Yeah. You just climb up till you get your lawyer. But the way it works when a murder happens is detectives do the concentric circle expansion. They start with the two victims and they say, okay, who's close to them? Do they have exes? Are they having affairs? Do they have enemies? And so Natch, the ex, is going to show up by just doing an Accurant or a LexisNexis, and you're going to see she was married. So they would call him as par for the course for an investigation. They'd give a call, not thinking that he's the killer, but wanting to know, where were you that night? We just got to check you off the list, And so he, according to Anjanette Levy from Law and Crime, gave a bogus alibi. And that tells me that he talked to them. He gave them information. And it turned out to be bad information. It turned out to be a lie, which is usually, it makes you the focus of a murder investigation. So I would love to have been a fly on the wall for that first conversation. Hi, are you Dr. Michael McKee, is it? Yes, hi. What can I do for you, officer? Right. Well, we're investigating a murder. I'm so sorry to be the one, if I'm informing you of this for the first time, but it's your ex-wife, Monique Tepe. she's been killed in a double homicide. Oh, heavens, that's terrible. What happened? Whatever. The next question would be, would you mind me asking, where were you on the night of December 30th? Oh, and this is where it begins. What does a murderer, I'm not saying he is one, but what does a murderer say when posed with a question that has no good answer? They lie. They give a bogus alibi. And sometimes they're even more helpful. And they just open the floodgates. Help, 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 help. I'm with you. I'm on your team. What can I do to help? All that. So that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that now that I know he kept allegedly a murder weapon in his apartment after a double murder, that he was dumb enough to just yammer on. Just yammer, 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 yammer. Let it ride. Just go, 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 bro. Because everything you say is your record, and you cannot then deviate from it, right? But I'm going to go into much more depth with this. With one of the most famous defense attorneys out there is Mark Garagos. He said some of the most high-profile crimes, high-profile defendants, and so I'm going to talk to him about all the questions that police ask, and if they're asking just to get information and get the truth, or if they're asking to lock you in because they have their suspicions. Probably a little of both. But it's a good conversation with Mark Garagos because he's had to face the pile of poop, that defendants will have already unleashed by yapping, and they lock themselves into their stories, and then they torpedo all these potential defenses, right? Because I'm just going to say right now, Monique and Spencer are dead. There's no other adult in that household who could ever say that, oh, Dr. Michael McKee was here for a birthday, or he stopped by for Christmas and we had a drink. That could be a defense for Dr. McKee. If they said, ever been to the Tepe house? Well, sure. I was there a while ago. I stopped by to say hi. I visited the kids. Then all those things of yours, your little microscopic pieces of evidence could be in the house legitimately, as opposed to illegitimately. And honestly, Mark Garagos, I think the most famous case that he had to mop up a disaster was Scott Peterson.
Tell me about the morning.
Okay. I don't know what time we got up. Probably Lacey got up and went and assumed she had some cereal for breakfast.
What you're telling me, Scott, is you have no idea where this is.
Because Scott Peterson left a trail of lies, right? Just a hot mess behind him. And, there's the defense attorney left to juggle it all and try to navigate a defense that would make sense. And Scott Peterson talked to the police. So you'll hear Garagos in a minute, but honest to God, even if you're innocent, you just shouldn't talk to the police because it can be twisted in all sorts of ways you can't imagine. It's a business. They're in the business of solving crimes and getting convictions. You're in the business of staying the hell out of jail. Think of it that way. Okay, so once again, we got a lot to get through in this episode, so let's just start right from the beginning, okay? When police hold a news conference about major cases, especially when they're still in flux, like the Spencer and Monique Tepe case, people on my side of the camera, we do two things. We focus on two things. We focus on what the investigators say, and we focus on what the investigators don't say, right? In the don't say column, when police in Columbus, Ohio faced reporters for the first time since the Tepes were killed, they declined to reveal any motive. Okay, I got that. Doesn't stop us from obsessing over why a vascular surgeon from Illinois allegedly gunned down his ex-wife and her current husband 2 states away, nearly a decade after they parted, right? Chief Elaine Bryant of the Columbus PD, she did call the murders, quote, a targeted domestic violence attack. That's telling. And she did say that police recovered weapons, plural, from Michael McKee's penthouse condo in Chicago. Do you remember this incredible condo? I've shown you in the last episodes. Man, it's a stunner. It's in one of the prettiest and most expensive areas of Chicago. It's in an upscale building with a doorman and a pool on the roof and a barbecue area on the roof and all that, filled with professionals, the building. And his apartment in particular was beautiful. The Zillow pictures are like, mwah, like real estate porn. He had this great view of Lake Michigan, and it was just a lovely place. So, yeah, I mean, I still say, what on earth could have gone so wrong? How could you have possibly, if you're the killer, have taken the weapons back to that apartment and kept them for 11 days? And I'm going to get to all of that in just a second, but first, a quick thank you so much for being here. You really do make this true crime podcast possible. And also, thank you to my sponsors who make this possible. Masa Chips has joined my team, and here's what I love about Masa Chips, and I think you are going to love it too. Have you ever looked at the back of a typical bag of chips? It's like mind-numbing. Half the ingredients are stuff I can't pronounce. Seed oils and MSG and artificial dyes and all those natural flavors that are absolutely not natural. So here's the deal. I'm obsessed with Masa Chips because they're chips you'd make on a farm, the way food used to be before everything started to come out of a lab. They've got 3 ingredients only, just 3. Organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. That is it. And if you love masa, they've got a sister brand called Vandy Chips, potato chips with just 3 ingredients. And I'm getting you a 25% discount on your first order. You just have to use my code Banfield when you go to masachips.com or vandycrisps.com. Or you can just click the link in the description or scan the QR code. And if you want them today, Masa and Vandy are now in Sprouts nationwide. So grab a couple of bags before I get the rest of them. Pro tip, the lime. Man, I love them. Okay, back to the case. So plural weapons found in his beautiful penthouse, and weapons plural including the alleged murder weapon, cops say. Also, how do police know that? Like, what's the science? What do they have? How'd they do it so fast? Well, there's a very good way they know that. Earlier on my News Nation show, Banfield, I talked to Matt Murphy, who is a former homicide prosecutor in California, and he knew right away what they would be doing. He was way out front on this. He had the answer. Have a listen.
What's really interesting, Ashleigh, is there is a system known as NIBIN, and that's the National Ballistics database, where they take shell casings, assuming it's a semi-automatic handgun. We don't know that yet. But the shell casings that get expended on those, they're like DNA for firearms.
Okay, now fast forward to this morning in Columbus, Ohio. And here is that police chief that I was talking about, Chief Elaine Bryant.
And there's a preliminary link from our NIBIN to one of the weapons that ties it to the homicides.
Blink and you'll miss it, but there she was talking about that NIBIN database. NIBIN stands for National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. I know it's a mouthful. National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. And as Matt Murphy said, it's like a library. It's like a database that can trace bullets and shell casings right back to the guns that fired them. For now, the make and the model of the gun that killed the Tepes is in the don't say column. This might, however, answer the question as to why it was ATF agents who made the collar and arrested Dr. Michael McKee last Saturday near the Rockford, Illinois hospital where he worked. We do know that the ATF could narrow all this down to a 9mm gun, right? Because that's the shell casings that were left behind at the murder scene, 3 of them. But in a minute, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how the ATF grabbed him, because there was some drama. I had envisioned they'd knock on his door at home and get him there. And then I heard, no, they got him in Rockford, Illinois. And I thought, well, that's embarrassing because that's where he works. Did they go into a hospital and arrest a vascular surgeon right out of the OR or right out of the hospital? And then I thought, I don't think so. I wonder how it happened. Well, now we know. And I'm going to tell you all about it. And it's actually kind of intriguing. I didn't expect a vascular surgeon to go to this place for lunch, but okay, that's coming in a minute. But now I want to turn to something that really struck me as super interesting in that police press conference. One answer that was definitive and one answer that was not, but spoke volumes nonetheless. The definitive answer was that there have been no police reports made from the Tepe home about Dr. McKee stalking or harassing Monique Tepe before the murders. But when the reporters asked if there had been any communications between Dr. McKee and Monique Tepe, this was the answer that the police chief gave.
Can you tell us if McKee and Mrs. Tepe had any contact leading up to this incident, months, weeks?
There are some things that we can't share for investigative purposes, but what I can tell you again is that we didn't have any reports or anything linked to that specific location as it relates to the ex-husband and Monique Tepe.
Well, that's interesting. So no reports ever came from 1411 North 4th Street about Dr. McKee. But did any reports maybe come from other locations about Dr. McKee? I don't know. Maybe we'll get those answers soon. And also, did you notice how the police chief hedged a little on that question of communications? She said, quote, "There are some things we can't share." But she had just shared that there were no reports that had come in about Dr. McKee in that area. But the minute she's asked about communications, well, I can't share. So that tells me that there may very well be. Is it possible that there were contacts between McKee and Monique? Or maybe between McKee and her husband, Spencer Tepe? Wow, that would be a lot to learn, and I think we will learn these things in the days ahead. Then I want you to listen to this this question from the press corps. I thought it was interesting. I am suspicious as to whether there was any casing of the home beforehand, allegedly by Dr. McKee, before, as police say, the murders happened. But the reporters asked about neighbors, and that apparently neighbors had actually seen Dr. McKee around the Tepe's home beforehand. But here's how the question was asked.
Neighbors had said that they had seen McKee in the neighborhood and in front of the Tepe home days before the homicide. Can you confirm that?
At this time, we're unable to talk about specific information, but again, when we get additional information, we'll be more happy to share it too.
Not surprised that the police chief didn't answer it. They're going to keep a lot close to the vest. There was another question, though, that came from a reporter. I don't know what to make of it. I'll be honest, everybody and his dog is doing a very deep dive on this story. Everybody's pulling court records, documents, criminal histories, marital histories, all of that, right? We're pretty good at this. Sleuths are amazing at it. Reporters are great at it. Like we all, crowdsource this stuff. But there's one reporter that asked a question that really stood out to me because it sounded like she knew something that the rest of us didn't. Have a listen.
I know this is an ongoing investigation. I don't know if you can say this, but obviously they were divorced. Are you able to say anything about their relationship after that divorce? It was in 2017. Were they civil? I know he had a second wife as well. Again,
there is, the investigation is still ongoing. Just understand, we're still collecting information. We're still going through a lot of evidence, and there's just some things that we can't speak to right now.
Did you hear the reporter? I know he was married again, second time. Like, that's not something any of us has found. And let me tell you, we have been digging like grave diggers. I mean, we have looked and looked. We have not found another marriage. If anybody knows who's watching, by all means, leave something in the comments. I would love to hear what you have to say about it and what you may have found. But so far, nobody has found that Dr. Michael McKee was married again. So that might have just been an ill-informed reporter asking in that way. Or just syntax. I don't know. We may hear more details, though, about Dr. McKee, and I'm, crossing my fingers on this one, because he's got a first court date in Ohio coming up. It was scheduled for Monday of next week, and I'm recording this on January 14th on a Wednesday, but now they've rescheduled. They've pushed it ahead to Friday, the 23rd of January. So, got to be patient on this one. But apparently who's ever in charge of moving Dr. McKee, extraditing him, they can't seem to do it very quickly, even though the doctor waived extradition. So he's okay with going. It's just the apparatus isn't all in place. A lot of reasons for that. They're not that freaked out. They got him. He's locked up. There's no concern, But it's just such a close trip. Like, that's what's so weird. He allegedly made the drive himself in just 6 hours, give or take, between Christmas and New Year's. But they are taking their time to get that extradition in place to get him back to Columbus, Ohio. And earlier on my News Nation show, I talked to former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffendorfer. Here's our conversation. Okay, Jennifer, I thought of you right away after the press conference, and I asked myself, I wonder what Jen thought of that. So I'll ask you, what does Jen think of that?
Well, I'll tell you what, I agree with you. her not answering some of those questions right off the bat and being very specific made me think they have so much information related to an intersection between these two at some point before the murder. Maybe that was that proximal event I always talk about that happened that ignited this action that he took.
Talk to me about NIBIN, because I've always been under the impression that NIBIN, again, this sort of ballistics dating site, right, for lack of a better description, really got weapons that are out there from bad people doing bad things that already got arrested, and those weapons went into the register. This guy, Dr. Michael McKee, is clean as a whistle. He doesn't have a scratch on his record.
You know, when you think of using NIBIN, that's typically in gang investigations and violent crime investigations where you don't have any clue who somebody committed it, but you have these casings that could connect to another crime. That's what we think of using NIBIN for. But the fact that there is an intersection here tells me that perhaps he bought this weapon at a pawn shop. Perhaps he bought it from a friend of a friend who somehow was connected to some time where that weapon was used, and NIBIN considered it important.
For folks who watch the show on a regular basis, I think they're going to know the answer to this question, but for folks who are kind of getting into the true crime space, a lot of people would wonder, why are the police so tight-lipped? They say they caught their guy, he's arrested, he's not getting out on bail. What's the big deal?
This is a big deal. Right now, they are looking at interviewing witnesses, anybody who saw or knew anything or understood that there were any issues. The minute you start releasing details about the investigation, you no longer know whether the individual you're interviewing is providing details that they really knew, or was it something they heard on the news. So it's very important that they stay tight-lipped at this stage.
And also that ever-present preservation of a prosecution. You know, if they, look, Koberger, they didn't get to prosecute him. It was just a deal. But if this goes to trial, you need to really hold your cards close to your vest. You got to share the discovery with the defendant, but you don't got to share it with Ashleigh, you know. So I am super curious about the confirmation today that the police said it was Dr. McKee, in their words, that skulking figure in the back alley. What is your estimation from your law enforcement background on how they determined that that was him?
Well, first of all, always, he has had this extremely unique gait. When I say always, I mean in all this film we've seen of him, from the beginning of time, he had that left foot that curved in, kind of pigeon-toed, has a very long gait, and you could tell he was a big man, not a small man. In addition, look at his clothing. It is unique to him, and I believe it was likely the clothing and maybe even that shoe tread that you touched on a few segments ago that led them to know this is him.
So at the end, I'm just going to tell the viewers, watch the very end, what he does with his face. And he looks away, takes his hand up, kind of covers his face, pulls the hoodie down. I mean, that's a big telltale, too. Look, in cold weather, I do that, too. I grew up in Winnipeg. But if you are leaving a murder scene and you know there are cameras, this is kind of the behavior you might actually emit.
Exactly, Ashleigh. From the beginning, when this person of interest, you know, was identified by law enforcement, to me, this person was so important. He was right near the crime scene at the time of the crime. And the way he acted like he was trying to hide and was guilty of something. So definitely a person of interest, a suspect.
So my guess, Jennifer, is there's a team of detectives still working this case and fanning out to try to figure out more material that will help prosecutors. They don't have to prove motive, but juries really want it. Who are they going to be interviewing to try to determine if there was, well, we know there was, but the extent of the acrimony between Monique Tepe and her ex-husband, Dr. Michael McKee? How will they find all that?
Well, they are going to start with everyone, Ashleigh. They have to go clear back years from when they were first married, identify mutual individuals, try to figure out if there was any sort of pattern of domestic abuse that then led to this. Obviously, they've been divorced now 9 years, but did he express to anybody the anger and resentment that he must have harbored if indeed he committed this crime? And what did she say? Has she told anybody about her concerns about Mr. McKee? Was that something that, she left on the table for them? All of this is going to be explored by law enforcement.
Every time I see that wedding picture, I'm just so sad because she just seemed so happy in this new life. And then there are those two children who don't have those two parents anymore. Jennifer Coffendorfer, always appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashleigh.
So while all the legal machinery grinds forward slowly, the people who knew Monique best are finally starting to speak. And they're finally revealing, a portrait that is far more intimate and also more unsettling of who Michael McKee was long before she and her husband Spencer were brutally gunned down in their bedroom. Anjanette Levy, who's the host of Crime Fix on the Law and Crime Network, recently interviewed Monique and Spencer Tepe's brother-in-law, Rob Misla. And when that brother-in-law talks about Michael McKee now, he does not hold back. He calls him a monster. According to Rob, Monique never referred to Michael McKee by his first name. Not after that divorce. Not once. She wouldn't say it. And that may sound small, but family members say it speaks volumes about how she viewed her ex-husband and how much fear may already have been there. Listen to how Monique and Spencer Tepe's brother-in-law, Rob Misla, describes Michael McKee now.
And why was the Tepe side of the family so certain that he was the primary suspect, that he was going to be the person that law enforcement arrested and charged?
And again, yeah, I'm just trying to speak for the Tepe side of the family because, Monique's side had obviously a different relationship with her. They've known her since she was born. For us, we met Monique in 2018 when Spencer first introduced her to us. But we were fairly certain because of just what Monique had told us stories wise of her. She never called him by name. She would just call him her ex-husband, and just how much of a monster he was, to be honest, emotionally abusive and threatening. And, she did everything she could to extricate herself from that situation. And, met Spencer and lived a very happy life. But I can't speak for Monique, but I know that it changed her as a person, and perhaps it was always in the back of her mind. I don't know.
Had she ever spoken to you about it, or Spencer, or did you just hear about a lot of this after the fact?
No, we were aware. She wasn't shy about talking about it, and how it had impacted her kind of mentally just as a person going forward. So we had all heard stories and had talked to her deeply about these situations, but at the same time, we were all thinking this is something in the past. And Monique is clearly happy right now and has a family and is with the person that she loves. So while we were aware of it, we were also more awestruck by the couple themselves and how much they were in love. So
did Spencer and Monique ever voice concerns to you, or did Monique voice concerns that she thought this guy just was going to show back up, or that he wasn't letting go of the past?
I would say that she was always worried about him. But at the same time, we never thought that it seemed like a direct threat. And she never mentioned, like, of recent, at least to me, that that he'd been in contact with her or anything. So that's all I can say, I guess.
And now about that arrest. We know that Michael McKee was hauled off in Rockford, Illinois by the ATF. But now the ATF is confirming something that we didn't know before. The arrest apparently happened at a Chick-fil-A. So multiple reports say that Dr. McKee was coming off shift, and we were told the arrest is in the morning. So my thinking is the dude was working an overnight, Friday night over into Saturday morning, and he got off shift and was heading out for, what would be lunch for us, maybe breakfast for him, and decided that a Chick-fil-A would do the trick. I don't know if he ever got to eat that Chick-fil-A. I don't know if he was headed back to the hospital to eat it, maybe to put in more hours. I don't think so. I don't know if he was about to drive the 80 miles back to Chicago with Chick-fil-A in the car. I don't know if he ate it in the parking lot as ATF agents watched and waited. So there's a lot of questions that immediately come up. Did Michael McKee pull out of the Chick-fil-A only to have cruisers come in and surround him and then yank him out of his car and get him arrested just moments later? Was he arrested in the parking lot while he was in that car? Had he just driven away? Was he stopped almost immediately? I don't know, but I think we will find out. Certainly that's the kind of information you do want to know, because if it's ATF, are they worried he's still got a gun and that he would do something if he saw that he was surrounded? So naturally, my intrepid producer, Lindsay Haller, found the Chick-fil-A and dialed up the Chick-fil-A. And Lindsay, you got a hold of somebody who works there. So Lindsay, when you call Chick-fil-A, give me a feel for that conversation.
I called Chick-fil-A not even knowing if I would get somebody on the phone, but when someone answered, I asked if they could tell me if Dr. Michael McKee was arrested at the Chick-fil-A. And the young man on the phone, he said, well, I can't confirm or deny, but there was a very large police presence out there. And I asked him a few more questions and he really couldn't answer. And just when I was hanging up the phone, I said, all right, thank you so much. He said, my pleasure. So very on brand for Chick-fil-A, that's their phrase. So yeah, they're really
So
doing
polite.
the Lord's work.
You know what I got to say, so often in these big chains, no matter whether it's a store, a restaurant, whatever, they get corporate guidance very, very quickly. And oftentimes it is no comment, do not speak to the press. So I can understand, why he'd say, I cannot confirm or deny. But I've got to be honest with you. Anytime anybody says, I cannot confirm or deny, it usually means it's because it happened. If it didn't happen, he'd say, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing like that happened here. Sorry. Have a nice day. You get a little more surprise. Somebody who's savvy and says, I cannot confirm or deny, usually means they've seen something and they're trying to be careful. And then after that, Linz, we got the confirmation anyway.
Yeah, from the ATF. They later gave out the address, and it was for that specific Chick-fil-A.
Was it, give the description of how close it was to the hospital where he worked?
So they are on the same side of the highway. It looks like if he turned out to go one direction, the Chick-fil-A is on the same side of the highway, literally just 7 minutes away. So maybe that's a couple exits down, something like that. It looked very close.
Well, fast food for a vascular surgeon. I guess you can get healthy stuff, though, at Chick-fil-A. My kids love it. I don't eat there. I have my own favorite. I hate to say it, it's McDonald's. I just love Big Macs. Is that terrible?
Look, I'm a McDonald's breakfast girl, so
Yeah, I like that too. Boy, did this podcast ever just take a right turn.
I know.
So I think that's interesting. I'm always interested to see when a federal agency is brought in, like the ATF, but with NIBIN involved. And then you mentioned to me earlier, if Dr. McKee did in fact kill the Tepes, then he would have had crossed state lines with a weapon. That also makes it a federal offense too. No need, though, if they're looking to take his life for this. Ohio has the death penalty moratorium right now. Doesn't mean they don't go for it. They do. But super interesting stuff.
I'll be interested to see that body cam.
Yes. I can't imagine what that would have been like to witness. Not just the folks at Chick-fil-A, but everybody else. You see ATF making arrests. It's a spectacle. I doubt many people thought it was for a murder, in the next state. And that leads me to my next question. What did Michael McKee tell the cops? Any cops? Cops who arrested him? Cops who called days and days earlier just to probe about a murder of someone he used to be married to. When a murder mystery lands on the desk of a homicide detective, one of the first calls they make is to the victim's ex, if they have one. And Monique Tepe certainly had one. Dr. Michael McKee, the man they've charged with her murder and her husband's murder. And one of the first questions they ask is, where were you on the night of the crime? Some killers clam up right away, but others turn on the charm and they just spew a whole bunch of lies. The same impulse that leads certain people to kill can also lead them to try to talk their way out of trouble. And that may have happened already with Dr. McKee. Anjanette Levy of the Law and Crime Network reports that Dr. McKee gave the police a bogus alibi, an alibi that didn't hold up. But at their press conference, police said that by the time they actually put him in cuffs, he did invoke his right to remain silent. So he got wise. But had he already said too much before he was in cuffs? I can tell you this much. If the surgeon told police something like, no, officer, I've never set foot in the Tepe's house, and if hypothetically his DNA, his hair, or even a tiny little fiber from some piece of clothing he owns is found in that house, his goose is cooked. What else might Dr. McKee have told the police along with the alleged bogus alibi? This is what keeps Mark Garagos up at night, right? He always says, call your lawyer before opening your mouth, and it's for a very good reason. Earlier on my News Nation show, Banfield, I talked to Mark. He's a legendary defense attorney. He's co-host of the podcasts Two Angry Men and Reasonable Doubt. Here's our conversation. Mark Garagos, that was the first thing I thought of, was that has this guy possibly painted himself into a corner because you know the police call the exes first?
They always do, and people always, unfortunately, have this reflexive need to kind of talk and basically talk themselves or paint themselves into a corner. And unfortunately, I've said it, I can't tell you how many times, on the federal level, they almost never record what you say, so it's your word versus their word about what you said. And then when it comes to local, sometimes they hear something, you didn't mean it that way, it doesn't come across that way. It's a no-win situation. You do not talk yourself out of something, you only talk yourself into something.
Can I ask you this, and I'm sure you know it because you've seen the transcripts over and over in your line of work. What's the first question police always ask the ex when they make contact?
They always want to know, was there trouble in paradise, basically. There's always some form or derivation of how was the relationship, what was the relationship, when was the last time you saw her? And they go down the usual litany of questions, and people always think they're going to spin it, they're going to do whatever. I mean, I understand the urge. I mean, nobody wants to be, imagine if you didn't do something. Nobody wants to be falsely accused. And imagine if you did do something. You don't want to talk yourself into it. It's just a no-win situation most of the time. And obviously there are exceptions. There's no hard and fast rule in every single situation. But it almost inevitably in these cases, I can't tell you the number of times I've sat in a trial, in a murder trial, where the words of my client come back, and that is what you spend the whole time having to explain, having to interpret, having to provide context, and basically doing the battle that you never had to do.
Yeah, and it basically can torpedo a defense. For instance, if the original cops who reached out to him just because he was the ex, not because they suspected that he was a murderer, asked him, have you ever been in their house? Were you in Columbus that night? Have you ever been in the Tepe house? And if he answered no, well, how on earth does a defense attorney deal with forensics that might show hair, fibers, DNA of the defendant in that home or of the victims in the defendant's home?
And by the way, I take that same situation if it's unrecorded and you heard or understand the question to be, were you there this day or were you there last week? And you thought that's what they were asking. But in fact, you were there a month ago, 2 months ago, and that isn't what you were focused on. Something that is a harmless answer can be twisted around because, and I'm not saying law enforcement necessarily does that, but you're talking about two different people with two different agendas looking at the same situation. And the person who is in the crosshairs, if you're innocent and you have somebody, a loved one that's missing, you want to help, you want to give information, you're not looking to try to protect yourself. And the person who is asking the questions is coming into this situation. They have no idea what the relationship was. They're trying to get information. It's just a very difficult dance to navigate. And remember, one side is a hardened investigator who's been through this a zillion different times, and somebody else who is scared, traumatized, and presumably doesn't have any experience in this area.
Quick answer on this one, but I have to get your perspective. Police say they found the murder weapon in the house. What criminal keeps a murder weapon, let alone in his house, if Dr. McKee is indeed the killer?
Well, finding the murder weapon in the house doesn't tie it to him unless there's some other evidence. There's, just like most accidents, car accidents happen close to home. Unfortunately, many homicides happen in the house or in the curtilage of the house. So that alone doesn't do it for me.
I don't know. If I'm a juror, I don't know why a murder weapon would end up in an ex-husband's home 6 hours drive away. But there's so much we have yet to find out. Mark Garagos, thank you. I always appreciate your perspective. We are going to keep tracking this case as it moves through the system. Make sure that you're subscribed. 2 reasons. You do me a huge solid if you do, so thank you. And then also you don't miss any updates. This story moves fast, and I am doing a lot of episodes, more than usual, so I don't want you to miss anything and then have to go back. And, it's a pain. Just subscribe and you'll get the bing. Thank you so much, everyone. I so appreciate you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And remember, the truth isn't just serious. It's drop dead serious.